G'day guys, Mac with you, Circle. Today, I was reading obviously the comments on my latest video, and a comment caught my eye, one of the newer ones, and it's this comment here, and I want to take the time to actually talk about what it says. Also, I received another comment, which was, you can't see on screen right now, but it was a person saying, the company is in the best financial health of its life, and this salt monster tells us how they can win back people, lol, on a video published over a year ago. Now, that's right, I keep track of comments, even going back to old videos. I try and do my best to engage with the community because I think it's very important, even if I'm no one of real note. So, let's talk about that first. The company is in a good place financially because the company has tripled prices in the same span of time that wages have gone up by about 30%. So they're making a shitload more money for the same level of investment on their end. Essentially. You can argue, bigger factories, increasing staff wages, stuff like that. Yeah, okay, but also technology brings costs down at the same time. Like, industry's great like that. The technology to produce dyes, for example, is very automated now. A lot of computer design takes out a lot of the nigglies you used to have to find out firsthand by hand building things. So you have to weigh these things off against one another. But the biggest thing Games Workshop's probably done, apart from tremendous, hideous price rises, especially price rises that took place about 10 years ago now, when basically everyone outside of England had much better financial, how should I put this, say the Australian dollar was very high against England, basically, against the British pound, as were many other countries, and the consequence was that they made a crap load of money out of us because we're paying full price for their products, we're buying more of it because our dollar's going further, and they're still getting the same money on their back end for the same products. So they were loving it. If we're buying 50% more product out of them, they're making 50% more money. Great for them. But the biggest thing, of course, is the fact they've hoarded out their IP. And I say hoarded out because I mean it. Everyone who can make a digital video game of some kind seems to have a Games Workshop game. The amount of mobile games, shitty ones at that, is ludicrous. Of course, there's some diamonds in the rough. Take your Total Warhammers, your Battlefleet Gothic Armadas, that kind of thing. There's some games that are a lot of fun out there. I myself play a lot of Vermintide 2 with friends. Yeah, I think it's something you can't neglect. Of course, the company's going to be in a good position when they're charging a crap load of money for their product relative to what people used to pay and relative to what people earn. Straight away, you're setting yourself up for good times. But of course, the big thing there is that video game money is a short-term solution because you can pretty much only do it once. You can send out over, I say once, but it's over a couple of years, give out your IP. Eventually, though, you'll flood the market, or people will go, I don't think I'm getting my money's worth out of this product. Case in point, we're going to get a third Total Warhammer. What happens after that? You can't really retread the same ground, therefore that franchise is kind of going to be, done at that point. Maybe they can bring out more DLC, fill out some of the factions to a greater extent. Maybe, I don't know. But that's done. That game series is done. Are you going to bring out another RTS to compete with that? If you can even call it RTS, probably strategy is a better term for it. Probably not. Not in the fantasy setting anyway. You'd have to move on to something different, like Age of Sigmar. Or perhaps some sort of original Dawn of War style game. Maybe like the old Warhammer Mark of Chaos, if anyone remembers that game. Maybe something more like that, or like an Age of Empires, or StarCraft type game, or Command & Conquer type game. Takes place in 40k, 30k, Warhammer Fantasy, something like that. Dawn of War series is of course washed up because Dawn of War 3 was terrible and an absolute failure because it wanted to be a MOBA first and foremost, wanted to be an esports game rather than a game that was true to the series. And it captured neither of those markets because, well, for a sci-fi game, it was going up against StarCraft, and the people who were into Warhammer, they didn't want that game, they wanted what they had already, just better. And that didn't happen. So, what can you do? I'd love to see more Diablo 2 style games. That would be fun. And I like things like Vermintide, but Vermintide 2, Battlefield Gothic 2, or Armada 1 and 2, I should say. These are cool games. You could probably do some great Sins of a Solar War style game out of it, or maybe Empire at War, if anyone remembers Star Wars Empire at War. You could do some fun things, but these games release very bare bones. So Total Warhammer 1, fucking, 6 factions, something like that. And a couple of years later, like 2 years later, they bring out Total Warhammer 2, which is what I would consider a full game. They did the same thing with Battlefield Gothic Armada. It comes out, 4 factions on release. Battlefield Gothic Armada 2 comes out, we've got like 8 factions. This is important to note, because it's almost like they released the first game as a tester, and then they released the second video game later on, and that's like the full video game. I'd love to see them do something like Vermintide. I was talking about it with a mate when we were playing it last night. Like, hey, why is there only 5 classes? One of them's an elf, one of them's a dwarf, and the other 3 are all humans. Why can't we have something different? Maybe a different type of elf, maybe a different type of human. You could have something like a Bretonnian damsel added to the game. These were ideas we were tossing out. Some fun things you could do to mix it up. Add more heroes in, like a healing class would be pretty handy in that game. There's a lot of tense scenarios, but of course the counter to them being a healer would be terrible DPM. So, comes and goes. But the reason I say this is because I don't think it's a sustainable market long term. Because eventually, even a company like Games Workshop can outstay their welcome in a certain market. And unless you're doing new, unique, creative things with your IP, people are going to lose their interest in it. And once you've already satisfied their need, unless you bring along something that's a lot better, they're just going to walk away from it. And so you get things like Dawn of War 3. And once they stop supporting a game like Dawn of War 3, then the community all fucks off at a rapid pace. And if word gets out the game is not very crash hot to start with, again, community, out of there at a rapid pace. So, long term financially, I don't know that video games are necessarily the best market for them. But, I digress. This comment here. I want to touch on the second half of this comment, which is basically the things that they wish Games Workshop did instead of some of these models they recently released. Producing product that people want, have asked for, or keep proper products in production for fuck's sake, like random black books. Yeah, that's important. It's definitely important to do what people ask. The problem is figuring out what people want. Dare I say it on YouTube, the social justice community wants a lot of things, but they don't seem to want to put their dollar where their mouth is when those things actually released. Combined with the fact that they're probably in the minority out of most people. Most people don't really, care to the extremes that some of these protesters do. So they'll release a movie or something, some product with a lot of diversity in it for the sake of diversity, and it bombs because either there's not enough people who actually support it, or the people who do support it, well, pretend that they support it, don't care. Either way, it's terrible for them. Games Workshop doesn't want to end up in this position, so in their defense, how do they know what people want? It's very hard to go onto forums and, or channels like this and listen to what people want. I'm very black and white with what I want, I feel, but even then, I get a lot of comments that people seem to be confused by what I'm after, and what I'm after is well thought out models which suit their backstory and fit into the game and are well play tested. They don't have to be perfectly sculpted, perfectly play tested, anything like that, just solid, down-the-line sort of models. I wanted New Guilliman, for example, in 40k, to look more like Guilliman in 30k. The same sort of armor, the same sort of proportions, and instead we got this weird, lanky Gumbo fella, or Gumby fella, who has terrible-looking armor that doesn't tie into the aesthetic of his entire faction. Why? Doesn't look right to me. So immediately it starts setting off the salt barrels, and, his second point, focus on being an example in paint schemes and techniques. Again, a tough one. They're trying to market to the lowest common denominator, and that is people who can't paint. They want to go to kids off the street, not even kids off the street, grown adults who have no idea how to paint. And I don't even mean this as people who will be able to paint eventually. There's a lot of people who will never be able to paint. For whatever reason, they're happy at the skill level they've got, which may be 0. And they want to say to them, look, even you can achieve a good-looking model, the basic finish, with very little effort. And they're appealing to the people on that level. Is it the right approach? No, I don't think so. For me personally, getting into the hobby, and every single person I've ever spoken to in real life about it has said, no, I'm inspired by seeing really well-painted stuff because I then want to go out and replicate that. And I agree, that's the boat I'm in. I go, fuck, that model looks amazing. I want to be able to do that. And it inspires me to go out and do better. Whereas if you release really low quality models, yeah, okay, the person coming in off the street might be able to chuck some contrast paint on a model and get a marine that looks sort of like the artwork that you've supplied as a company, but will be subpar out. And they'll probably just say, it's good enough. I seem to notice a lot of that. It's not many people who are actually going to that next step anymore. A lot of people hit that really basic tabletop. And I mean, when I say tabletop here, I mean barely tabletop. Paint streaks all over the models, poorly done trim, lots of basically colouring out the outside the lines that were. I mean, that's fine. If that's all you want to aim for, I can't tell you what's right and wrong. But what I can say is it doesn't look good to me. If you're happy with it, that's fine. But this is unfortunately the standard that the company is fostering. And that's what I don't like. The company should be putting out the really high-end promo art. The creme de la creme, and saying this is what you can achieve if you put your time and effort into a piece. Where the really simple paint schemes come in should be things like on their Warhammer community YouTube channels, where they actually have those little 2-minute painting tutorials and that they do, like, we're going to paint a Stormcaster Tyrell today. Okay, great. That is the appropriate place to put down that really simple style of painting, where they're throwing contrast paint on a model, basically. There's only 3 coats of paint on it or something to get a complete model. It doesn't look absolutely amazing, but it's passable. That's the appropriate forum for that. Not the artwork on the boxes, that kind of thing. And that's another thing. Like, a lot of the boxes now, the artwork, a lot of Photoshop, that kind of thing. Little retouching on the miniatures, that kind of stuff. You don't get as much detail and information out of the box and what's in it as you used to. But that's sort of an aside. So, yeah, I would like to see that. I want to see things like Forge World, for example. They shouldn't just be taking the staff's own armies or something, especially if their staff aren't good painters, and throwing that up on the screen as their promotional stills, because frankly, that's not good enough. You're charging a lot of money for this product and you want to hold it to a high standard. I don't want to be coming along and going, okay, I need to wait for this thing to be released in bare grey resin so I can judge what the model actually looks like, if it's any good. That's not ideal in my world. And so, yeah, the point I'm getting at is they should encourage people to aim for a high standard, but show them how to hit an entry standard. And unfortunately, right now, to my eye, they're mostly showing them an entry standard, and that's all. 3. The third point, is it Stephen or Stefan? I'm not sure how the pronunciation, but point 3, he says, properly playtest rules and balance out units to produce those units the game really needs, or produce those units the game really needs. Yeah, very important. Yes. Playtesting is usually abysmal because they don't do it. It's really what it comes down to. If they do playtesting or like one of those battle reports, they don't build a list like a person playing the game would. So they build a list, not even like a fluffy player would build one. If they play an army, they don't take like a couple of tactical squads and a couple of rhinos, that kind of thing, like say a 30k player would. They'll take like one tactical squad, one scout squad, because they want to show a diversity of the range. In the old days, there was a lot of those multi-build kits where it was like one large unit, like a tank or a monstrous creature, and you could build it 2 different ways. One of those ways was usually trash, the other one was overpowered. They would always take like one of each, because they're trying to sell one of each to you. And so they would make it into their list. And they always did a lot better than they actually performed in real games. And of course, vice versa, for the people who play really gamey and want to win all their battles, and kicking dicks is the only thing that matters to them, so tournament players here, they don't care about painting, for a start. I just thought I'd throw that in. And they don't care about the diversity of the range. They only care about what wins their battles. And so the battle reports you see in like White Dwarf are completely unrepresentative of the game as a whole. Added to this is there's a lot of rules conundrums and clusterfucks that occur when people start to stack up multiples of the same unit or stack certain buffs multiple times. These are things Games Workshop would notice if they actually got some competitive players in and tried to build competitive lists with these armies and see how they actually performed. But they don't do that. A good example of something like this to me right now would be, say, the Destruction faction, Age of Sigmar. Mediocre performance, low model counts, expensive armies. Sometimes they've got high model counts, but the models themselves have terrible rules. The factions all over the shop. But then you go to something like Ossiarch Bone Reapers, a completely new faction, and it's ridiculously overpowered with these crazy catapults that can just wipe out whole units in single shots, or whole characters in single shots. Really awesome characters, essentially the equivalent of command points that they can share out to their army, which there is no way of countering. They just have them. They just get them, and there's nothing you can do about it. So these things are out there, and so you compare these two factions together, and you're like, how can these two things exist in the same game at the same time and call it balanced? Well, you can't. Now, the game may not be intended to be played as a tournament, but here's the thing. They host tournaments at Warhammer World, and they write rules for competitive settings in their rulebook. And they're like, oh, if you're playing competitive, use these rules. If you're playing just for fun, use these rules. So they're aware of it. They're cognizant of it. They do zero effort to try and balance it. Or if they do put effort into it, it is poor, because I've noticed, especially in the 30k community, the 30k community is really good at balancing it out on their behalf. And this is just passionate people, like the Mournful guys, doing this in their spare time. So it can be done. Balance is there, and people who understand and regularly play the game understand this. But the staff at Games Workshop are not people who play this game predominantly. There are people there who work for the company who were passionate gamers. Maybe they still are, and they've risen to some sort of mid-level management, that kind of thing. And there's some people over at Forge World collect their own armies and stuff, and that's cool. But there's also a lot of people there who are just everyday workers, and this to them is just another job. They've come in off the street and they work in the art department, for example, and they think drawing, I don't know, cutesy Nurgle or something's a thing. Again, that floats their boat, fine. But, pay some respect to the IP you're actually working on, and don't just draw the shit you feel like drawing, or, and this doesn't just go to the artist, this goes to the management, because they're the ones who make these decisions and give the artist their direction. And that's the thing, it's a corporate entity, unfortunately. So I guess the point here is they can produce balanced rules, they choose not to through mostly laziness. They don't want to take that step in quality control because they feel that we're selling models. We don't sell rules, we sell models. It just so happens they also sell very expensive rules. Which leads to the next point 4, updating FAQs and other books like the Red Books. Yeah, they have a whole bunch of digital codexes, and yet for some reason when they do an FAQ, they don't replace that line in everyone's digital copy. This is living software. You can patch it out. You do an update for that particular book. Why don't they do it? And when they rerun and reprint books, they don't incorporate these FAQs into it. Why? Because they don't want to go through and re-edit the things. Laziness. Sheer hubris and laziness. They don't care. You will still pay full price for that defective product. They know it's defective. The book has mistakes in it. The book has typos in it. It's missing information or needs clarification. They will sell it to you at full price. It is a major problem. Something that they do need to be pulled up on. His 5th point, finishing projects, like the White Scars. They're getting there. They do have a horrible habit of starting out strong. So they start a focus on something strong and then they veer off over time. They'll throw all their eggs at something and it'll be amazing. It'll be the new greatest specialist game for a week. I say a week, but it's actually 3 months till the next specialist game comes out usually. So Warcry. Warcry, great example. Comes out. Here's a bunch of extra warbands. How cool are these miniatures? Alright, see ya. Thanks for coming. We'll give you another warband down the line. A couple months later, you'll get one. And we're there now, Dark Elf warband's coming out for it. Necromunda, again, comes out. You get a couple of gangs in it. And then you get a trickle of releases over time. Every couple of, probably, I think it's about 3 monthly, the cycles for specialist games. 3 monthly, you get another, like say, faction, gang, whatever, attached to it. Some, like Aeronautica Imperialis, get a once a year update. Same with Titanicus, seems to get like a once a year update. It's a problem. It's a major problem because games will stagnate. And this is the problem with Games Workshop trying to cover 200 different products. Like, I say products, but I mean games. Different systems at the same time. They're not Milton Bradley. They're not looking after Monopoly over here, Trouble over there, Connect 4 over there, Mouse Hunt over there, whatever. All fun games. They're trying to have multiple game systems with releases constantly flowing into them, with constant updates, FAQs, and rules. And they can't do it all at once. And now they can't do it all at once. They're trying to just do bits here and bits there, and you get this horrible scattershot effect, where a faction comes out and you go, what, is that it? Is that all you've got for it? So take New Chaos. We got some New Chaos Space Marines, some New Chaos Terminators, a couple of new headquarters units. That's it. That's the end of it. When it's like, shouldn't there be more dreadnoughts, more demon engines, more tanks, bikes, things like that? Like bikes are a great example. I haven't been updated since, 99? Something like that, the Chaos Space Marine bikes. And yet then you go over to Primaris Marines, and it's just monthly a new release, usually a lieutenant, so I guess it doesn't count, but, this scattershot approach to where they're sending their development is horrible. So yeah, that is a major thing that needs fixing. Point 6. Enriching the hobby by inspiring people to make their own terrain, units, characters, etc., like they used to do in 3rd. Look, it's still out there to an extent. Unfortunately, they want to use just their own products to kit bash with, because they want you to buy off them, buy paints off them, buy models off them to convert into something. Unfortunately, a lot of their conversions they show are based on you buying multiple expensive models for like a part or two, which is really inefficient, and people will say, oh, throw it in your bits box. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that anymore, because your bits box used to be full of arms and legs and heads and weapons and stuff like that, but now, because models are made to be monopose, it's like your bits box starts to fill up with whole models that are missing a key part of that model, that good luck scavenging up another part to replace it, which is a huge problem. You can't just take the torso of a Marine. For example, if I wanted a Primaris torso, for some reason, and I want to put on another Marine, I'm going to be left with these Primaris legs, which won't fit something else. Especially if it's one of those locked pose Primaris, like out of a starter box. Oh boy. Really, you can only use Marines and stuff out of like a tactical squad separate box. So it's a problem. And yeah, they really just want you to buy their product, use their products, that kind of thing. They don't want you to take a shampoo bottle and make a fortress out of it, or a graph tank or anything like that. That's not their way anymore. They want you to buy stuff off the shelf for expensive prices and use it. And some of it is frankly way too expensive. No kid can afford it, which is what shocks me, is that this hobby seems to be aiming more and more towards children. It's nowhere near grimdark anymore, especially when you look at the cutesy art style on like their community page. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate the people who are doing the work. There's some fun artistry there. But you go through it and, you get these lovable, happy characters. I don't know if there's any on there at the moment. Like there's a little Nurgling at the bottom of the screen, which you can't really see right now. Like this here, the How to Watch the Warhammer Preview Online 3. And they're like cutesy Space Marines on it. Or this role models, this little comic strip thing. There's nothing wrong with them making that, but they seem to be aiming towards kids, because it's not artwork you make for fully grown adults to appreciate. Adults who are into serious stuff. That artwork style there for the Solo Warhammer, the Glim's Forge Catacombs, that Nighthorn art style there, that's for adults. More adult content. The cutesy artsy shit is aimed at kids, and more specifically, maybe kids' parents. But again, if I was a prospective parent, would I want to drop as much money on this game as it costs currently for my kid? Probably not. Maybe they're socially engaging, but again, modern environment, I probably want them outside playing sports. If they're going to be inside, do I want them playing Warhammer, or do I want them playing video games? It depends on the video game, really. I'll be very proud of my kid if they pick up Command and Conquer. Not so proud of my kids if they get into... I don't know. Something like Fortnite. Yeah. So, kids can't afford it. Adults find it prohibitively expensive, but they're clearly not targeting their products at adults, which is a weird thing. They can't sculpt a good-looking female model at the moment for some reason, for Sisters of Battle, even though, like, a lot of people keep saying, it's SJWs, man, they don't want to piss off the SJW. The artwork of them, they all look like Barbie dolls, so they're not afraid of doing all the box art and the background art as these glamour, skinny, like, size 6 glamour models in power armor, complete with breast armor and that kind of thing, but they want to have fugly chick models who look like they've all been hit in the head with a fucking crowbar or something, caught on fire and fell down an ugly tree and hit every branch on the way. Like, fucking hell. What are they aiming at? Yeah. I don't really have a point here. My point is just that they're all over the shop, really. They're not going to show you how to make your own stuff. Their conversions are uninspired these days. If you want to see what people are doing, it's the community itself that does the advertising best for them. That's not to say they do a lot of bad things. Like, I want to take a moment here just to say, like, some of the good they've done. Their community engagement is a lot better than it used to be. As in, it exists. Yeah, okay, it's still one-sided and fucking dreadful because of that. Where you say things like your prices are way too high in this country, and they just clean ignore you, even if you've got, 9,000 people that agree with you about their regional pricing. The company just flat out ignores that. Like, that's, I dare say, a significant percentage of the amount of people who actually play this game. I'd say probably somewhere around the 10% at a guess. If there was many more than, 100,000 people playing Warhammer, properly playing the game worldwide, I'd be shocked. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing if it's true. I guess that's a backhanded compliment when I say they have community engagement. But, they have a community portal. They do previews of releases. They actually do short stories and stuff. They have a Twitch channel, even if it is the cringiest thing you've ever watched and the comments are fucking worse than YouTube. They have a variety on there as well. It's not just constant 40k releases. In fact, if anything, I'd say it's probably more weighted towards Age of Sigmar. But there is a variety to releases. So there are things they're doing right, I suppose. So I don't want it to just sound like they're doing everything wrong, because they're not. They're really not. And really my criticism comes from the place of they could do so much better in these areas. And I'm just remarking on what, one person wrote as a comment. And I get a lot of these type of comments, okay? Which is why I make these videos. Not because I'm just salty and I sit there all day, fuck, what am I going to have a go at Games Workshop about? Let me think. Oh, what did they do today that I can just shit on? Like, no, that's not my mindset at all. My mindset is like, fuck, what do I want out of them, okay? That's fair and just, and where are they failing in doing that, and where can I praise them for doing the right thing? So, the video itself in question praised the ever-living out of this Necron, forgive the pun, because it did everything right for me. But there were models in that video which didn't do everything right for me. I'm like, Saul Tarvis looks nothing like his artwork. Nowhere near as pretty For example, see how that's that cutesy style right there. Fucking Forge World. This is on the Forge World website, and they're aiming that. Is that aimed at adults who can afford Forge World? No, that's aimed at a kid. A kid is looking at that artwork, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go home and buy a $3,000 Warlord Titan. Yay, cutesy. Free advice, Games Workshop. Kids aren't into cutesy. Kids are into adult stuff because they want to be adults. They think they're more mature than they really are because they're kids. Immaturity is their thing. They don't look at cute stuff and go, oh, that's awesome, I want it because it's cute. They look at stuff and go, I want it because it's cool. And what's cool? It's stuff that looks like it's too mature for them. Like cigarettes and alcohol and certain types of music. Girls always want to try and emulate older girls, wearing shorter skirts, more makeup, that kind of thing. It's a story as old as time itself, right? Guys are the same. Guys, we want to have like a cool car and stuff like that, whether it's just to impress girls or even other guys, right? Cutesy doesn't do it. You don't impress people and draw them into your grimdark hardcore war game by making it look like it's for people who like Adventure Time or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's, on their community website, Saul Tarvitz. You can see a picture of him in the background there. Saul Tarvitz, the first loyalist. Yeah, it's his model. Like the old artwork and stuff. He's not really that crazy. He's wearing like a Mark V chest plate there, or a late Mark IV, just the two power straps crossing across the chest with the skull in the middle. And yet his actual model, oh no, big massive Palatine Aquila across the chest. And okay, what about his arms? Oh, he's got a bit of an eagle vambrace there, but now it's a huge eagle vambrace, not just like three little wing bits of an Aquila and a claw. No, it's a full-on, they just take the pictures of the model and they've dialed him up to 11. Take the shoulder pads in. You see his backpack? Do you see a standard on the back of his backpack there? No, you don't. What about his sword? That looks like a normal standard broadsword. And yet we got this, Oh, look, they're completely different. That's what I was critiquing the other day, and people were like, no, that's definitely how I imagine Saul. So, fucks me. Yeah, but, it's not that they're doing bad things. Games Workshop's not doing bad things. They could just do things better. Community engagement, of course, the art styles, playtesting, all these are major flaws, major problems. This is true. But, are they terrible? No. Business practices? Yes. But as a company, no. No, they're in a better place now than they've been in a long time. And they do deserve praise for that. I really do think so. So, yeah, an eclectic episode, guys. But thank you if you stuck with me the whole time through the rambling. But it's a lot of thoughts I had to get out off the cuff about a few different comments that I've received. And, yeah, I think it just needed to be said. So, yeah, as always, let me know what you think in the thoughts and comments below. Thank you all for watching, and see you on the next episode.